Dalada Samindu Pihitai. We are delighted to welcome you to the special live broadcast of the Day Perahera of Kandy Esala Perahera 2025. Brought to you by the Media and Special Projects Bureau of Sri Dalada Maligawa, Kandy. And you are now seeing the most devoted moment where the Deyavarna Nilame is making his way from the Gedige Vihara towards the ceremonial tusker. The Day Perahera ceremony of Kandy Esala Perahera is held on the 11th day of the festival and is remarked as the final procession to take place as a part of the annual Esala Perahera festivities. Much popularly known as the Dahaval Perahera, this special procession has its own special characteristics that differentiate itself from the Kumbal and Randoli Perahera that we all witnessed over the past 10 nights. And this is the Senkadagala kingdom which hosted the Dalada Perahera for the past 10 nights. On the previous night, after the conclusion of the final Randoli Perahera, one would assume that the Perahera has actually concluded, just like the nights before. But the final Randoli Perahera has a different conclusion compared to the other days. In fact, the royal tusker who amusingly concluded his street perambulations shall once again step down the moonstone, the Sandagala, right at the special Akshipus time, right after the midnight, which surprisingly reorganizes a Perahera that will proceed towards the Asgiriya Gedige Vihara. Walking up front with the sound of thundering whips through the skies are the whip crackers, announcing that the procession has commenced, and these whip masters are tasked with clearing the way for the relic casket and the king. When looking back at history in the ancient times, it was the ruling king who paraded the streets in the Perahera. But now it is the Deyavarna Nilame, the lay custodian of the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha, who will resemble the king in the modern day Perahera. And this is the live broadcast brought to you from the Media and Special Projects Bureau of Sri Dalada Maligawa, Kandy. The Perahera is believed to be held in prayer for timely rainfall, and the elements of the Perahera is structured in a symbolical way that it paints the imagery of a rainfall. Rain would never be showered without the striking sound of thunder, and these whip wielders are the symbolic imagery to depict the sound of lightning and thunder. And these will pay homage to the rain gods, requesting to bless our crops with cultivations and rain. This special Perahera, which is known as the Gedige Perahera, is merely a smaller version of the Grand Randoli Perahera, which is glamoured with few elephants and dance items. This Gedige Perahera commences after the Grand Randoli Perahera, and it shall proceed down the Dalada Vidya, take a turn down the DS Senanayaka Vidya, and head straight to the Asgiri Gedige Vihara, which is also known as the Adana Maluva Vihara. And the day after the Gedige Perahera, we will be having the day Perahera that you are witnessing right now. It is the ancient tradition that the Perahera relic casket will be reverentially kept at the Gedige Vihara on the final night after the Randoli Perahera, which will still be taken out on this day Perahera. This temple that belongs to the chapter of Asgiriya under the great Shyam Mahanikaya that governs the Sri Dalada Maligawa is known as Adahana Maluva or Srimating ground, since it was in fact the royal Srimating ground of the Kandian kingdom. And now we see the Buddhist flag bearers entering the day Perahera procession. A priority of Kandy Esala Perahera is to reflect the unity of Sri Lanka as a nation, which here is symbolized by the national flag that was leading the army of flags. This ceremonious procession is performed in adultation of the livelihood and the living Buddha, and as well as a paramita or an act of kindness for the future Buddha. The hexacolored flag is displayed in a ceremonious form to remind people of the great scope and depth of the Dhamma that was preached by Lord Buddha. The flag bearers create a sense of unlimited compassion to Lord Buddha, and this sight truly calms the undisciplined way forward minds and focuses them on love and compassion that radiates across the universe, according to the teaching of Lord Buddha himself. A speciality of the Gedige Perahera, which took place yesterday night, is that even the requeries of the Sataramaha Devalaya, Natha, Vishnu, Kataragama and Patvini too joins the splendor of the soft procession, which shall parade all the way down to the Gedige Vihara and head back to the respective shrines once the relic casket is handed over to the custodian monks of the Gedige Vihara. We now see the most magnificent sight of the day Perahera, which is the arrival of the very first elephant who will be carrying the Peramune Rala. And today, the elephant who will be taking the Peramune Rala is Banda, who belongs to the Honorable Deyavarna Nilame. It is the norm of the Perahera that the Peramune Rala, or the front runner of the procession, is the first person on elephant back, and neither officials nor elephants are permitted to parade before the Peramune Rala. Clad in the traditional white costume that comprises of the white jacket and the triangular hat, the Peramune Rala comes into view carrying the secretarial scroll known as the lay committee. The lay committee, which is encased in the long cylindrical silver casket. That particular scroll is encased in this casket, which is made out of ola leaves, a traditional form of paper of the native Sri Lankans, and this scroll contains a full description of the procession. And following that, we see the official Hevisi group of Sri Dalada Maligawa. Where we see they perform in a dignified present in front of the procession as a tradition which they practice with majestic skills. In fact, no Panchaturya Vadana or traditional orchestra of Sinhalese music that produce sounds using either drums or other musical instruments is permitted before the Hevisi, as per the Kandy Perahera tradition. Following the Hevisi troupe, we see the Gajanayaka Nilame of Sri Dalada Maligawa. Riding on the second elephant with dignified majesty is the Gajanayaka Nilame of Sri Dalada Maligawa. The Gajanayaka Nilame is the royal official in charge of the king's troop of elephants, and it was a position given to him directly by the king himself. And today, Mian Raja is the tusker who will be taking the Gajanayaka Nilame. And Mian Raja is from the stables of Sri Dalada Maligawa. And with that we see the entrance of the West Dance troupe, which is the pinnacle moment of this procession, where they will be escorting the tooth relic of Lord Buddha. We are now at the much awaited and most devout moment of the Perahera, as we now see the royal tusker ceremoniously carrying the Perahera relic casket. Guarded by the Dali elephant, sprinkled by jasmine flowers and officiated by the royalties and escorted by the majestic West dancers. And today the ceremonious tusker will be Singaraja from the Sri Dalada Maligawa stable, who will be accompanied by Pulatiti Raja and Kotte Raja. Let us now take a moment to feel the devotion and worship the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha. Following the most sacred moment of this Perahera, we see the clan of devotees holding flowers and lamps that symbolize an offering to the relic casket. A main ritual that is held in the 11th day is the Diya Kapima or the water cutting ceremony, where the 4 ceremonial tuskers of the 4 Devalaya shrines shall leave the shrines together at the early dawn at the auspicious time towards the bank of the Mahavali river in Gatambe, that is known as the historic Diya Kapana Tota. And now we see the second West dance troupe escorting the Diyavarna Nilame of Sri Dalada Maligawa. We now see the lay custodian of the Sri Dalada Maligawa, the 19th Diyavarna Nilame, Honorable Pradeep Nilangadala, who walks with utmost pride and majesty while bringing a true sense of ancient royalty to this Perahera. The Diyavarna Nilame will walk under the Mutukudaya or the pearl umbrella, surrounded by his army of guards and followed by the Vidane or the chieftains of the 10 associated villages of Sri Dalada Maligawa. And with that we see the Buddhist flag bearers from Sri Mahanatha Devalaya procession. And on the 11th day of the Perahera, the ceremonial elephants carry the requeries with the priest on their mount. And once the water cutting ceremony is over, the requeries shall be reverentially brought from Gatambe down in Katukale Vidya to the historic Pullayar Kovil in Kandy. Now we see the entrance of the Gajanayaka Nilame of Sri Mahanatha Devalaya, who is mounted on the elephant Kandula, who belongs to Dhammika Samrakkodi from Kataragama. The water cutting ceremony is an age-old ritual that marks the end of the Perahera rituals, where the priest of the 4 Devalaya shrines will splash the current of the flowing river water with a sword. And the first swirl of water that emerges from the sword slashing is collected to a pot, which will be carried carefully to the Devalaya till it is placed until the next procession will be taking place on next year. And now we see the entrance of the Nayandi trans troupe of the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya. The lining up of the day Perahera is much different to the commencement of the evening Perahera. The 5 ceremonial tuskers and the other elephants shall dress up at the designated dressing points of the Sri Dalada Maligawa, and the 4 Devalayas, and they shall proceed out to the starting points. The elephants of the Sri Dalada Maligawa Perahera will head to the Asgiriya Gedige Viharaya, while the 4 Devalaya representations will reach the Pillayar Kovil in Katukane. And with that we see the entrance of the West Dance troupe, who will be escorting the godly ornaments of Lord Natha. As we come to the pinnacle moment of the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya procession, we see the West dancers escorting the ceremonial tuskers. Today, the godly ornaments will be carried on the mount of the elephant Rohana, who belongs to Mr. Varuna Kannangara from Horana, and the ceremonial tusker will be accompanied by the elephant Kandula from Tissa Maharama Viharaya and Muthu from Muthiangana Viharaya. And now let us take a moment to feel the devotion and blessings of God Natha. The procession of Natha, Vishnu, Kataragama and Pattini Devalayas shall leave in the procession down at the Katukale Vidya, Dalada Vidya, Kotugodala Vidya and the Kande Vidya till it meets the junction point at the DS Senanayaka Vidya. This is the moment in which the Dalada Maligawa Perahera shall proceed out from the Gedige Viharaya along the DS Senanayaka Vidya and Raja Vidya. And the 4 Devalaya processions shall follow as usual. And this is the formation that will be happening on the day Perahera that is taking place now. An important fact about the day Perahera is that the Perahera shall perambulate 3 times around the temple square of Sri Dalada Maligawa till it reaches the Akshipa's time of conclusion, where the royal tusker shall walk up the Mahavahal Kada and thus concluding the day Perahera. On this year 2025, we witnessed the grace of the 1715 Perahera that had begun during the reign of King Kirti Sri Meghavarna, who pledged that the relic must be carried around the city once a year. And this tradition still continues, followed by the succession of many ruling kings, prime ministers and presidents of our country. An ancient poem translated from the book Sangarajavata recites the story of the Kandy Esala Perahera as follows. The kingdom of Senkadagala, the procession of the month of Esala, held from times ago in favor of the rain gods above, led by grace of Lord Buddha, followed by the deities. The Perahera shall perambulate just as the kings did commemorate. The legend of God Natha takes us down through many cults in Buddhism, including the Mahayana and Theravada traditions, where he is predominantly associated as the future Buddha. In fact, in the Sri Lankan history, there are recorded evidence and mentions of God Natha in the Sandesh of Tisara, Gira and Koul, where God Natha was one of the prime deities who was seeked by the ancient kings of Sri Lanka. And this is the magnificent site of the Senkadagala kingdom on the day Perahera of Kandy Esala Perahera 2025. And this live broadcast is brought to you by the Media and Special Projects Bureau of Sri Dalada Maligawa, Kandy. And now you are seeing the site of a brass canopy and a snake head canopy, which symbolizes protection to this Perahera and the godly ornaments that are being carried in this procession. And this is the entrance of the second West Dance troupe, who will be escorting the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya. The well-known fact behind God Natha is the belief that he is next in line to attain Buddhahood as Maitri Bodhisattva, where he is also identified as Avalokiteshvara in the Indian cults. The iconography of God Natha is shown as a young gentleman of fair complexion who holds a lotus flower on his left hand. He is in fact famed as one of the most dominant gods associated in the hill country. And representing the Basnayaka Nilame of Sri Mahanatha Devalaya, we now see a Basnayaka Nilame of a rural shrine affiliated to the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya. And following the procession of Sri Mahanatha Devalaya, we see the state flag symbolizing the procession of Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya. The unique collection of flags in front of us are known as the provincial flags. These include the uniquely designed flags of the 12 states and 9 counties that were under the rule of the Kandian kingdom. The reason why we see the state flags leading the procession of God Vishnu is to simply denote the fact that Lord Vishnu is the guardian deity of Sri Lanka, and his eye is being shadowed upon all these states and counties represented by these flags. It is the ancient tradition that the first elephant to take part in the procession of Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya shall carry an official holding a special flag that is affiliated to the customs of God Vishnu, which is the Irahanda Kodiya, or the flag that illustrates the sun and the moon. And following that, we see the majestic entrance of the Gajanayaka Nilame of Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya. And the Gajanayaka Nilame was on the mount of the elephant Haritha, who belongs to Mr. Tusitha Ranavaka from Deniyaya. And now we see the Pantheru dance group entering this day Perahera procession. Another important fact about the day Perahera is that it will be starting after the water cutting ceremony, which is an old ritual that marks the end of the Perahera ritual, where the priest of the 4 Devalaya shrines will splash the current on the flowing river with a sword, and the first swirl of the water that emerges from the sword saline will be collected to a pot, which will be carefully kept at the Devalayas till the next Esala Perahera festival. And this is the entrance of the Udaki dance troupe, who will be adding beauty and the ancient culture to this magnificent procession. And now we see the pinnacle moment of the Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya procession, where the best dancers will be escorting the godly ornaments of Lord Vishnu. And today the godly ornaments of Lord Vishnu will be carried on the mount of the Kataragama, who belongs to the late Tudor Gunasekara Heyantuduwa, and who will be accompanied by the elephant Vasana, who belongs to Mrs. Krishanti Alapatha from Ratnapura, and Chuti Menike, who belongs to Bharata Amrutunga from Meekoda. And this is the devout movement where the godly ornaments of Lord Vishnu. Let us take a moment to feel the blessings of Lord Vishnu. And with that we see the entrance of the Buddhist flag bearers of the Kataragama Devalaya in Kandy. Interestingly, it is not the end. Devarna Nilame and the four Basnayaka Nilames of the four Satramaha Devalaya shrines and the Pitisara Devalaya shrines shall ceremoniously walk to the President's mansion to hand over the scroll to the President himself after the day Perahera. And now we see the moment where the West Dance troops of the Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya escorting a representative of a rural shrine, Basnayaka Nilame. Representing the Basnayaka Nilame of Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya, we now see a Basnayaka Nilame of a rural shrine affiliated to the Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya. With that we see the Buddhist flag bearers of Sri Kataragama Devalaya. The opening representation of Sri Kataragama Devalaya Perahera are the unique flag bearers who showcase a different variety of flags. The flag that leads the way shows an illustration of King Ravana, who is an ancient king of Sri Lanka, who connects the Indian epic of Ramayana to Sri Lanka. The reason why we see the flag of Ravana being led ahead in the procession is to communicate a belief that King Ravana is a reincarnation of Lord Kataragama. And today we see on the Mount of Manike, who belongs to late Anurakempiti of Kegor, the Ravana flag in this procession. Lord Kataragama, or the god of war, is a divine deity who is worshipped as Kanda or Kartikeya in South Indian traditions, and as Kandasurindu or Kadira in the Sri Lankan cult. He is considered as one of the most powerful deities, who has an appearance of 6 heads and 12 hands, who sits on the peacock with his consorts, who are Tevan Amman and Valli Amman. And with that, we see the entrance of the Pathuru dance troupe. If one could notice, you can see the change of tempo of the performers of this particular Devalaya, which is considered as a high tempo with a beat of highest of vibrations. Following the Pathuru dance troupe, we see the entrance of the Gajanayaka Nilame on the mount of Bandara, who belongs to late L.L. Tilkaratna in Kegal. And with that, we see the entrance of the Kavadi dance troupe. A speciality of the Sri Mahakataragama Devalaya is that among the many different offerings that are made towards Lord Kataragama, Kavadi dancing is renowned as one of the most prominent dances of devotion that is performed to impress the likings. Kavadi is in fact a Tamil word that translates to burden in English language, and this dance ritual originates from the South Indian by the name of Kavadiyattam or burden dance. Devotees believe that Lord Kataragama is impressed by energy and Kavadi dancing, and it is one of the key interpretations where these performers hold the hillock known as Kavadi of physical burden, a small semicircle shaped wooden prop with peacock feathers attached to it, and on their shoulders they dance to the fast tempo music. While at times the more authentic form of Kavadi is performed without a single practice of choreography, but instead a fast-paced and highly energetic dance. Following this highly energetic Kavadi dance, we see the entrance of the elephant door, Sandali and Dinuka, who belongs to Miss Hasanti Karunaratna from Ganigoda. And this is the pinnacle moment of the Sri Mahakataragama Devalaya, where we see the West dancing troupe escorting the ceremonial tusker. And today the godly ornaments will be carried on the mount of Bibila, the elephant from Sri Lanka, Amarapura Nikaya. And the Dali elephants will be Vidita Raja of Dimbulagal Forest Monastery and Aruna of Henad Viharaya. Unlike the other four Devale shrines, the chief priest or the Iyer of Sri Maha Kataragama Devale in Kandy is not a Sinhalese origin. He is in fact an Indian national of who is from a traditional Brahmanic lineage. And with that we see the second dance group of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya. And this group of West dancers will be escorting representing the Basnayaka Nilame of Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya, where we see a Basnayaka Nilame of a rural shrine affiliated to the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya. An interesting fact is that it is not the end of the Perahera after the day Perahera. The Devana Nilame and the four Basnayaka Nilames of the Satara Maha Devalaya shrines and of the Pitisara Devalaya shrines shall ceremoniously walk to the President's mansion to hand over the scroll to the President himself to acknowledge the end of this year's Perahera festivals. This is a very ceremonious occasion where the President of Sri Lanka shall honour the organising body of the Perahera and provide state honours to commanded artists who took part in the Perahera. And now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame of Sri Mahapattini Devalaya on the mount of the Elephant Chula from Pelmadulle Rajamaha Vihara. The male-dominated presence of artists that we saw previously is no longer visible as we see the entrance of the female representations of the Perahera, which is indeed the speciality of the Sri Mahapattini Devalaya procession, being the only goddess that is venerated in this religious pageant. This segment of the Perahera not just celebrates the virtues of goddess Pattini, but it also celebrates the greatness of women and the value that is extended to this world. With that we see the entrance of the West Dance troupe of Sri Mahapattini Devalaya, where they will be escorting the ceremonious elephant who will be carrying the godly ornaments of Sri Mahapattini Devalaya. And today the godly ornaments are carried on the mount of the elephant Sita, who belongs to Mrs. Nilanthi Veerasinghe from Mihirigama. The cult of goddess Pattini narrates many amusing stories, which are all part of the legend of this great goddess. One of the most interesting facts out of the legends is a birth story, which is a popular and known as Satpatvini, where it reveals the 7 different ways in which she has been born, which include the story of goddess Patini being born out of a mango, dewdrop, cobra tear, Demeter flower, shawl, fire and lightning. And with that, this is the second West dancing troupe who will be escorting a representation of the Basnayaka Nilame of Sri Mahanatha Devalaya. We now see a Basnayaka Nilame of a rural shrine affiliated to Sri Mahapattini Devalaya. While it seems very happy to know that this year's Perahera is truly a successful completion, it is ironically quite a sad moment to almost all the participants who took part in the Perahera over the past 11 days. It is a family bonding that everyone shares with each other, and everyone bids goodbye to each other of their colleagues with a heavy heart, with hope of rejoining back in the sacred city of Kandy for the next year's Esala Perahera festival. And with that we see the 4 palanquins being carried, which are the representatives of Queen's identity in the Perahera, and in fact of the 4 Devalayas of Natha, Vishnu, Kataragama and Pattini. And that marks the end of the day Perahera of Kandy Esala Perahera 2025. We hope that our country will be blessed with fertility and rains. For the 10 consecutive nights, we witnessed the glamour of this Perahera while appreciating our proud heritage that we pledged